I think as product marketers, we need to realize that growth marketing, similar to sales, is one of those teams that we need to get input from when deciding our messaging, our positioning, our audience, because they're going to have some insights from the ground and a higher scale likely than the sales team is. Both sides just need to sort of work well together.
You are listening to This is Product Marketing, brought to you by Product Marketing Hive, the product marketing community that gives back. I'm your host, Louise. In this episode, Clayton Pritchard, Director of Marketing at Momentum, shares his thoughts on transitioning from growth marketing to product marketing. Let's dive into it right now. Hi, Clayton. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi. Hi. Thank you for having me.
Great. So before we dive into today's topic, let's get started with a short introduction of yours. What does your career trajectory look like, maybe, and how did you get into product marketing in the first place?
Yeah, so I started my career on sort of the growth marketing side of things. I was working in a marketing agency, handling ads for customers. My first foray into tech was at Twitter, but actually on the sales side of the business, was sort of testing that out. But I really wanted to get back into marketing. So I joined a tech startup called High Five as growth marketing there. But we were a small company, and so there was lots to do. I originally joined to do ads, but it allowed me, because we were small, to take on a lot of different things. So I did our event marketing, I did our content marketing, and eventually moved into product marketing because I sort of had a passion for the product side of the business. I had good relationships with the engineering team, and then just was interested basically in our product and in our engineering roadmap, and eventually knew more about the product than my manager, who was the head of marketing, who was in all of the sort of executive meetings, more than he knew. And so I eventually moved into a product marketing role, really enjoyed it, and have sort of stayed with at least that as part of my role going forward. Now, like I said, I lead marketing at Momentum, so that I'm doing product marketing and growth marketing. But I do really enjoy the product sides specifically.
I see. Great background. So thank you for sharing. Congratulations on your new role, joining the Momentum.
Thanks. Yeah, this is week 4. So definitely still trying to ramp up and everything, hitting the ground running for sure when it's startup world.
Now you are the director of marketing at Momentum. Maybe you can also give us a little bit more context about your role. What do you do at the company?
Yeah. So I joined as the first sort of full-time marketing hire. I am really sort of laying the foundation for our marketing. Actually, the team has sort of done a lot, really honestly, already to date, with agencies and things, but sort of I'm taking it to that next level with a lot of focus, especially on the growth marketing side. A lot of the focus to date has been on sort of the messaging and positioning, because that's important. You have to lay that foundation before you can do anything else. Great.
So in your opinion, what is product marketing?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. For me, product marketing is, if you were a marketing major in college, it's really all the things that they taught us in college, which is like you're figuring out your messaging and your positioning, who your audience is, what is your sort of go-to-market strategy for like what channels are you going to be using, direct to consumer, for instance? Are you going to be selling through resellers? And it's your pricing and packaging. In order to do all of those things, you have to really understand the product. What does it do? What is the features? What is the vision? So that you can take all of that input and essentially use it to create, okay, if this is what we're going to be doing as a company, then this is the positioning based on the competition and everything as well. So I think it's the foundational work that you have to do on the marketing side in order to sort of bring a product to market. Like I said, I think it's needed before you can do growth marketing, even though a lot of startups try to hire a growth marketing or demand gen person first before they have necessarily everything figured out on sort of product market fit and all that. But yeah, I think it's foundational and really the thing that you need to be doing first. I think some people do get sort of misunderstanding like what's the product team and what's the marketing team do. Those teams really need to be working hand in hand together to sort of solve these problems as a cohesive team, and sort of one side really handling the technical piece, working with engineering, and then and design, and then the other side, the product marketing side, really needs to understand everything outside of the technical. Like I said, how we bring it to market, working with the sales teams and with the rest of the marketing org, to take that product and hopefully drive success with finding customers who are going to buy.
Yes, great point of view. So, in your own words, then how do you define growth marketing?
Yeah, I see growth marketing as being the team that their focus is on driving sales for the product. So they'll take the positioning, pricing, all that, and the product from the product and product marketing teams, and then they'll work with product marketing generally a bit on figuring out the right audience, and bringing that to them. So this ends up being things like ads, and email, which is what a lot of people think of, but it also ends up being things like running content marketing and SEO, anything really that the goal here is to drive sales. And they tend to have very specific metrics that they're trying to hit. I see growth marketing as sort of synonymous with a lead gen business as well. It sort of depends on your company. If you're not a lead gen company, you're obviously not going to have that. If you're maybe more of a sales or e-commerce company, but it's the team really that's driving the business forward by finding people who are wanting to buy.
I see. So, having been in the growth marketing role, tell us, what do you love about it?
Yeah. I really like the number side of it. So there's that analytical mind, or analytical side of me that enjoys the focus on the metrics and the A/B testing, and sort of gets excited when I find an ad that performs better than another one. And a lot of times it ends up being maybe one that I wasn't even expecting. And so I think that's the piece, like I said, where they have to work well together, is sometimes we come up with positioning that we think is going to work well, but then we test it in the market and it doesn't. But that testing piece is exciting to me on the growth marketing side. I would say though, eventually, if that's all I'm doing, I do get bored. You sort of start off at the beginning of a new campaign, or maybe when you're starting a new growth marketing team, and there's a lot to do. There's easy wins, right? Like at Momentum right now, I'm doing the same thing, running a lot of our first advertising campaigns, doing a lot of our first focuses on SEO and all those sort of things. And so because it's newer for us, there's a lot of exciting wins, because there's a lot that we can do. But eventually we go from improving things from say 50+% to single digits. And it's just hard for me to get excited about those like small improvements. A little bit repetitive. Like we're generally running a lot of the same campaigns, and just sort of doing the same thing kind of over and over again, which is the goal, because you're slowly optimizing and getting better. Whereas on the product marketing front, we're generally doing a lot of the same types of things: messaging, positioning, launching audiences, all those sort of things. There's always a new feature that we're focusing on, maybe a new audience that we've got to go because we have this new feature. There's always things changing. And it's also super collaborative, which I like as well. Growth marketing can be a lot less collaborative. It's just sort of you with your tools to drive the demand. Whereas product marketing, you can't just do it by yourself. You have to be working with sales. You have to be working with product. You have to be working with marketing to be able to get the work done. And so I really enjoy that piece where product marketing is really the center of a lot of different teams and driving that collaboration too.
Great. What I like about product marketing is
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is definitely a little bit more of a creative role. I would say there's not necessarily a lack of creativity in growth marketing, but product marketing definitely is a more creative role, like you said, to figure out sort of what that messaging is, and then also working on things like the website, right? The design team is actually going to be the ones designing it, but you're working with them on how do we visually get our message across as well, which of course allows you to get a bit creative there too.
Great, great. So, yeah, actually, it's quite unusual for people to have experiences in both roles, the growth marketing and product marketing. So, what do you see as the similarities and maybe the differences also between these two roles?
Yeah, I think both teams are really important in figuring out the audience. So I think that product marketing is generally doing a lot of market research, talking to current customers and prospective customers. They're looking at competition, all those sort of things, and sort of they're coming at it from a research lens. And they're also talking to sales team. But then the growth marketing team is able to actually do A/B testing. So growth marketing can run A/B test of different audiences on LinkedIn, of different audiences in email, and actually test the audiences and the messaging that they're getting from product marketing. And that can be another piece to sort of feedback in to really make tweaks on that. So I think those teams need to work really hand in hand together to figure out, like I said, who we're marketing towards and what we're saying to them. And then I think a lot of the things though that we get from product marketing need to be used in that growth marketing piece also, because we don't know without doing the work on research and understanding the competition. It's difficult to do growth marketing because you basically have to do that stuff before, like I said, you can run the ad campaigns and everything. If not, you don't know what you're going to say or who you're going to say it to. So like I said, those teams need to work really hand in hand together. And generally they do work pretty well together, I find, because they're generally both on the marketing team. And I think they both understand that they need each other. Although I have seen some organizations where they're on separate teams. And so that might make that collaboration a little bit difficult if sort of, for instance, product marketing actually reports to product and not the marketing team.
That's great. So, for someone who is a growth marketer thinking about transitioning into product marketing, do you have any advice for them? Like, what are knowledge gaps they need to fill in?
Yeah, I think so. The way that I made the transition, I'll start with that and then maybe try to give some other insights outside of my own personal experience. But like I said, when I was at High Five, we were a relatively small marketing team where we didn't have sort of somebody to do every piece along the marketing funnel. And so I first came in to run ads, but we wanted to start doing conferences, for instance. And we didn't have anybody that had done that before, had experience. And so I took that on. And so that's not really a big jump, right? It's still a demand or a growth marketing thing to start managing conferences. But now that I'm doing that, now I have to, I'm starting to sell at those events, right? Talking to people. And so that's sort of figuring out messaging and positioning on the fly. And then I'm also needing to figure out, okay, how are we going to, what are we going to put on the booth as well? So what's the messaging going to be there? So generally starting to work with the product marketer, but that gives you that ability to sort of work together with them on sort of that messaging, working together with them on, okay, I need these one pagers for the event as well. And so you start to at least work with product marketing a little bit more. I think the other piece is if you're at a technical company, especially, you're going to be running demos of the product at the booth as well. And so now we're talking to the engineering team and the product team to make sure that those demos are set up and they're working correctly. And so now you're starting to just really understand the product a little bit more. So I think that's important. That's one way that you can sort of make that switch, is if you can get more involved in events. Like, that's one piece. The other piece is if you can start to do make sure you're attending any demo days or things that the engineering team are doing, like be in the Slack channels for engineering if they have them, pay attention to any sort of email, all company emails, and really basically start to become, as much as you can, an expert on the product and sort of what's coming. It's going to be helpful for the growth marketing role anyways. And then that allows you to start being sort of a source of knowledge within the marketing team as someone who maybe knows the product, knows the features, and really can sort of speak to that. I think another thing that was helpful for me is I made a switch to also managing our content marketing and working with our PR agency. Again, not a big sort of change from growth marketing when I was managing ads, but that conversation and working with the PR agency, a lot of what you're doing in PR really is like, how do we craft this story to talk about what the company is doing, And that story is your messaging and positioning. And so again, that's another sort of piece where you can sort of start to make that slow transition to where now I understood the product. I had the relationships with product and engineering, and I had some experience crafting and working on how are we going to talk about ourselves externally. I think the last piece there is also on the SEO front. If you're managing the SEO for the website, you have to, like I said earlier, balance optimizing for keywords that people are searching for and optimizing for the positioning that you're doing. And so again, that starts to get you thinking about those things, being involved in that side. And so now you're starting to have that skill set to maybe understand a little bit more of the product marketing and hopefully make a switch. The one thing I would say is it's usually really difficult to make the switch when you're transitioning companies. If you went from one company where you're the growth marketer and you did some of those things that I was just talking about at that company, but now you want to sort of get a product marketing role, maybe they'll take you on like a really junior product marketer, but likely if you've been a growth marketer, you're probably a little bit more senior in your career, and that might be a sort of pay decrease or whatever. And so you might not be interested in doing that. So it's probably going to be easier to make that transition within your current company. And so I'd say like talk to your manager, let them know that that's something that you want to do. So in addition to you sort of like taking on as much as you can sort of unofficially, you can also talk to your manager to see if there's some things that projects you can start to pick up to sort of show that you have that skill set and hopefully move into that role when there's an opening. Because people likely aren't going to take a chance on you if you haven't done it officially before and had the title. It is difficult to sort of make that transition when switching companies.
Thank you for walking us through your journey. This is great.
Yeah.
So, like you mentioned earlier, as a product marketer, there's quite a lot of collaboration with other functions. So, growth marketing is one of the counterparts. What are your thoughts on the better collaboration between the two functions, growth marketing and product marketing?
Yeah, I think as product marketers, we need to realize that growth marketing, similar to sales, is one of those teams that we need to get input from when deciding our messaging, our positioning, our audience, because they're going to have some insights from the ground, and they're going to have insights at a higher scale likely than the sales team is. The sales team, they're not generally tracking these things, right? And so they might hear from a couple customers that they thought would be big customers, and now we're basing decisions on like 5 people because those are the ones that sort of stick out to them. It's harder for them to sort of see trends. There's recency biases, all these things that like just humans naturally have problems being able to like see long-term trends or remember them. Whereas in a growth marketing role, that's what the team's doing, is they're tracking those long-term trends. And so I think bringing that insight in from that team is super important. I think the other thing, I'll give sort of a concrete example. There are times when the positioning is, or the messaging can make it harder for the growth marketing team. So for instance, think about SEO. If we want to say some things on product marketing in a specific way, and that's what we want the hero, the header on the homepage to be, and all those sort of things, we want to use basically these specific types of words to get the messaging across in the way how we want people to feel, but that may not be the way people actually search for something. So at a previous company, for instance, at High Five, we were a video conferencing company. And for a little bit, we had changed our positioning to like meeting room collaboration, which was good from a positioning standpoint, but nobody searches for that. And so our SEO traffic dropped a lot because we didn't have as many mentions of video conferencing on the site. And so we weren't getting as much traffic for people that were technically searching exactly for us. And so I think there's this balance of, we want to make sure the positioning is correct so that we are positioning ourselves well in the market versus the competitors, but we also want to take into account feedback from SEO and ads and all those sort of things about, okay, what messages do people resonate with? What messages or what words are people using when they're talking about this? And so I think those two teams need to work well together. And then I think similarly, the growth marketing team needs to be open to new messaging, new positioning, new audiences from product marketing, and willing to sort of test those out and see how they perform, because the product marketing team is talking to customers, is talking to prospects or running surveys. They are really understanding the competition. And so I think the insights that they have can be valuable on the growth marketing side as well. So I think, like I said, I think both sides just need to sort of work well together and sort of take each other as valuable inputs into their work, and hopefully to make them both better.
That's a great answer. So then I think it is certainly beneficial for product marketing and manager to have some level of knowledge of the growth marketing. So in your opinion, for a product marketing manager, what should you know about growth marketing?
Yeah, I think one thing that I like to say is the go-to-market sort of playbook that you're running really is generally going to be growth marketing. And so I think understanding growth marketing and how to drive adoption for new features is super helpful, because it means that you're able to be a more valuable teammate, right, when you're putting that together. So you understand what is the capabilities of the advertising platforms, for instance. Then okay, this is the creative, this is the like copy size and type that I need for a LinkedIn ad versus a Twitter ad. This is the image size I need to work with design on to sort of get that up and running. And this is the way we can target people. Because if you come to a growth marketer and you say, yeah, I want to target people on LinkedIn that are parents. It's like, okay, well, I don't have a way to target people on LinkedIn that are parents. That's not a targeting capability. And so then now we have to sort of figure out, okay, what the growth marketer is like, okay, they said they want parents. What does that actually mean? Like, what can I do here to get this on to work well? And so that's an extreme example. You're probably not thinking of LinkedIn as the channel if that's the audience that you're going after, but just sort of like in general, being able to understand what is the targeting capabilities means that you guys can both sort of talk the same language. And then I think the fundamentals of like A/B testing too, even for things that product marketing is going to own, like for instance, in product messaging, maybe tooltips or other sort of demand rivers that you're going to build into the product, especially if you're where I was before at LinkedIn. You have a lot of members that are visiting the site, and now we need to figure out how to drive adoption from them. That's probably your primary product adoption channel versus sort of an outbound channel. And so you need to understand how do I A/B test and basically use these growth marketing skill sets, but for in-product growth, like demand gen. And so I think being able to understand that a little bit is helpful, in addition to, like I said, being able to sort of speak the same language with the growth marketing team too.
Great. Thank you. So we're getting to the end of our time here. Do you have any final thoughts on the topic to share with our audience?
I think we dove into it pretty deeply. So I don't think I have anything like specific on the topic to share. I would say if anybody has any more sort of follow-up questions, definitely feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. And I'm happy to sort of answer those. I also have some blog posts and stuff featured on my LinkedIn as well, actually, about making a transition into product marketing. So feel free to check that out. And like I said, reach out to me about any specific questions. I do sometimes like career chats with people that are looking to make the transition too. So
awesome. Thank you. Thank you for your time. This is great.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to This is Product Marketing, brought to you by Product Marketing Hive, a product marketing community that gives back. Check out our website, productmarketinghive.com, to join our community, meet fellow product marketers, and access free resources, including training, playbooks, templates, and events. If you enjoyed our podcast, please subscribe and give a 5-star rating on the platform of your choice. See you next time.